Hello there. Today we're going to dive into a philosophical argument that really challenges one of the most common assumptions in our modern world. We're going to explore an idea that basically turns our concept of a default belief completely on its head. So let's start with a claim I'm sure you've heard 1,000 times. For a lot of people, this isn't just an opinion, it's the bedrock of reason itself. It's often treated as the absolute starting point for any discussion, the baseline that every other claim has to prove itself against. But, and this is a big but, what if that's not right? The argument we're looking at today puts a huge question mark over that entire assumption. It suggests that what feels so obvious might not be a natural starting point at all, but actually an idea we have to learn to believe. And that brings us right to the heart of it. It's so important to get this. This debate isn't about what's ultimately true or false. It's about something way more fundamental. What's our most basic, untaught, gut-level feeling about the world we live in? To really get this, we have to lock in this one key concept, the default position. Okay, think of it like your mind's factory setting on a really big question. It's the belief you just have, organically, before anyone comes along with a complicated argument to try and change your mind. And here's the central claim. This argument frames these two ideas not as equal choices, but as totally different kinds of beliefs. It says one is intuitive, this idea of a cause or a creator, while the other, rejecting that cause, is something that has to be acquired. It has to be taught. So if you follow this line of reasoning, looking out at the universe and thinking there's no cause for all this, well, that's actually a counterintuitive move. It's a conclusion you have to reason your way to, not something that just naturally pops into your head. Now, the argument doesn't just stop there. It actually goes further and says that choosing this acquired position denying a cause doesn't solve the issue at all. In fact, it argues that this very denial unleashes a whole new wave of incredibly deep, maybe even unsolvable philosophical problems. You see, saying there's no cause might seem simple, right? Like a clean solution. But this perspective says it lacks any real explanatory power. It's like snipping one thread but leaving behind a way more tangled mess of unanswered questions. And this leads us to the first huge explanatory challenge. If there's no ultimate cause, then we are left with a massive mystery. How does anything exist in the first place? How does an entire universe just pop into being from absolute nothingness? I mean, that idea goes against everything we experience in our reality. And right on the heels of that comes a second, really thorny problem. Philosophers would call our universe contingent, which is just a fancy way of saying it didn't have to exist. It could have been different, or it could have just not been here at all. So if its existence wasn't a sure thing, how can there be no explanation for why it's here? This argument claims that's a deep, deep logical problem. Okay, this is where the whole thing makes its most audacious move. This is the real game changer. It doesn't just present a different idea, it tries to reframe the entire debate by shifting the burden of proof itself. We all know this question. You've heard it, I've heard it. It's almost always framed this way, putting the pressure, the burden of proof, squarely on the person who suggests there's a cause or a creator behind the universe. But what if we just accept the premise we've been exploring for a minute? What if we say that the idea of a cause really is the intuitive default position? Well, then the whole thing flips. The burden of proof shifts completely. The main question is no longer why believe, it becomes why not believe. The argument says that to move away from our natural intuition, you're the one who needs to provide some really compelling evidence for doing so. Now, let's be super clear. This argument isn't trying to disprove any specific scientific theory. Not at all. Instead, it's a huge challenge to what we assume our starting point is. It's asking us to stop and think, okay, which one of these positions requires the bigger leap? And so, this is what we're left with. When you face the biggest questions about existence, what's your real starting point? Is it that untaught feeling that things need a cause? Or is it the learned philosophy that they don't? Figuring out which idea is the default and which one carries the burden of proof, well, that might just change how you see everything. It's a question worth pondering.